Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Pawtucket School Committee work session on June 24th at 6:32 p.m. Ms. List, please take a roll call.
Ms. Bonello.
Here.
Ms. Doobie.
Here.
Ms. Grant.
Here.
Mr. Knight. Mr. Larby.
Here.
Mr. Marino.
Here.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Here, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. We'll move to public participation. Ms. List, has anyone signed up?
Yes. The first person is Mrs. Elizabeth Fasterson.
Ms. Fasterson, if you could raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature, and Hirsch will let you in. Good evening, Ms. Fasterson.
Hi, good evening, Chairman Charbonneau and members of the school committee. No one expected to end the school year like this. On Tuesday night, when we received the news that we were no longer going to be at Tolman in the fall, after preparing for months for this move, came as a complete shock. This has been one of the most difficult years I have had as an educator in Pawtucket for the last 25 years. One thing this pandemic has shown is how resilient educators are and how they have been able to adapt to every situation. Everyone is very excited about the upcoming Shea renovations, but I have a number of safety concerns regarding the phase construction building while it is being occupied. Anyone that has had any construction done to their home knows the incredible amount of dust that it generates, even when we try to close off the area being worked on. I am worried about exposing our students and staff to potentially harmful dust. It's an old building that has been constructed with material containing asbestos and lead. We have had to endure wearing masks to school, and now I feel as if we need to come in with a hazmat suit. We also need to be concerned with the potential COVID restrictions in the fall as well. Another safety concern would be the number of construction vehicles in our parking lot and around the building while the students and teachers are entering in the morning and leaving at dismissal. Also, a phased construction would block off areas of the building, and I'm worried about not having enough classrooms for the number of students in the building. If we still have COVID restrictions in place, there would not be enough room to maintain social distancing. And again, I'm very excited about the work ahead, and I want the construction to happen, but I just wanted to make sure that all safety measures would be taken into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Fasterson. Ms. List, has anyone else signed up?
Yes, Mrs. Sarah Seelbach.
All right, Mrs. Seelbach, if you could.
She may be under her husband's name, Ryan Seelbach.
Ms. Liz, I think Mr. Charbonneau may have just dropped out of the call and give him a second to reconnect.
Mr. Cristino, have you been able to contact him?
No, I'm trying right now. I have him. See if I can get him reconnected. Oh, strange. He can see us. It's like Zoom may be having some issues. Okay, it looks like he just reconnect. Hold 1 second.
My apologies. I don't know what happened. I could see you all, but nobody could see me or hear me. I apologize. Miss Seelbach, are you on? Hirsch, have we found Miss Seelbach?
I don't see a hand raised. Let's see.
Hirsch, can you just remind how to raise your hand if you're on a phone? Just in case it's one of the phone numbers.
Hold on 1 second. Got it. Sorry, she's coming in.
All right. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi, the floor is yours, Miss Seelbach.
I can't hear you guys. So,
All right. Let's,
Brian, this doesn't work.
She's muted right now.
video.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, then I can't hear you, but if you can hear me, then let me start talking. Sorry for the informality of this. I got confused on how to start and all of that, so I'm gonna go to the point. Sorry, I have 3 children screaming on the background. So thank you very much for letting me talk today. I decided to make this public speaking today after something that happened yesterday, and I couldn't wait to not explain the situation to this committee. So yesterday afternoon, around 5 p.m., I got a phone call from a neighbor telling me to not go to the playground of the Curtis Elementary School because a kid pulled out a gun and all the children ran away. I was terrified when my neighbor told me that, but you know, sometimes there is rumors in the neighborhood and nothing is real. So this morning, the first thing I did it was to call to the school. They told me that they didn't heard anything about that story. I was surprised. So I called the Pawtucket Police Department, sorry. And they did confirm me that that actually happened. So 2 juveniles were arrested, and the gun evidently was a BB gun, which I don't even understand the difference about guns. So that's a little bit of background of the story. In 1 minute, I'm gonna explain, you know, my intervention, and it's that it's not a secret that we have a gun violence problem in this country. I am very aware that we have no tools to fix this problem. Just to put it in perspective, though, like it's something that is escalating at a speed that this nation has never seen before. In 2021, we've had already over 8,000 deaths, almost 300 mass shootings, many of them in schools. And it's something that it spikes in the summer, which it makes me very scared. So the reasons why this happens is like entrenched inequality, soaring gun ownership, also complicated relationships between police and community, which is all of those are problems that we struggle with in Pawtucket, right? And so after I saw that the school had no idea that this happened, and the sergeant, which he was very nice to me, explain me the story and then told me, well, stay safe out there. But nothing was going to happen after that. It just, it's the typical things that we say, and it gets hidden into the fog. I had the urge to ask this committee for help. So this is me asking you for your help, and not only listening to me, but jump on this boat. I am asking you to jump in, and let's take action together starting right now, because I don't want to be sitting in my sofa waiting for the next catastrophe to happen. And this is not like a nervous mom because a gun was at the playground by her house yesterday. This is something that I see every day on the news, and this was the last thing that made me take action. And so we have an amazing chance as a community to be the head of the train, to make the change when it comes to educational programs for gun violence prevention in our schools. Go much further than a school lockdown. Like, let's put the resources where we need to put them, right? Which is in our lives, the lives of our teachers, our children, the parents, the lives of the community. And so how does this look like? I have no idea, but here are some ideas. How about we create a subcommittee exclusively dedicated to gun violence prevention, or ask the help from community organizers, or make panels and focus groups with the youth of Pawtucket, just to throw out there some ideas. And just so you know, I'm offering you my hands and my time starting right now to work and help on this issue. And I am really hoping that some of you are gonna reach out to me. You have my email. And we can work together on more than it is what it is, because I am not accepting this violence culture, and I am sure that none of you will. So let's work on this together, and thank you very much for letting me speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Steelbach. Ms. List, has anyone else signed up for public participation?
Yes, Mr. Ronald Poirier.
All right, Mr. Poirier, if you could use the raise your hand feature, and Mr. Christina will let you in.
And for those of you on the phone, I'm sorry, Erin, I missed that when I was trying to get her in. If you're on your phone and you're not using the app, it's the *9 on your phone, and *6 is to mute. Unless you're using the Zoom app, then it's right at the bottom. Mr. Poirier's coming in right now.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can see me, but that may not be necessary. But thank you for letting me speak today. And I was shocked by the testimony of Mrs. Steelbach recently. I didn't know anything about that, but I would like to, in the moment, double down on what she said. That's a very serious thing, and I'm sure you all agree. And I'm sure this is, I'm not saying anything controversial when I say that. I also wanted to double down on the concerns of Ms. Fasteson, I teach at Shea. I'm sorry, I've been an ESL teacher there for 22 years, I believe. And I don't want to waste time talking about anger, but there is quite a bit of it at the school because we were asked to do an awful lot of work. I packed about 24 boxes full of materials and moved them into my house in the basement, and I'm going to have to move them back. I'm not sure why we were told to move on this plan before it had been, someone had asked the state if it would be okay. And I know I talked to maintenance staff who I was a little surprised how angry they were. It's just a thing that should be borne in mind. I'm also concerned, as Ms. Fasteson said, with disruption and noise concerns and health concerns that are going to be happening as they remove asbestos and other things from the building. I'm not sure what's within those walls that they're going to find. I attended LaSalle Academy in the 1980s, and we did asbestos removal at that time, along with some construction. And it was disruptive. There was a lot of noise. There was a lot of, depending on what they were working on at the time. I know there was an issue where they had to speak with the construction workers about language around the students. Just something to bear in mind. And I did hear some stuff that probably shouldn't be said on school grounds. And I don't know if this is a possibility, but it might be a good idea to look into either getting us a secondary facility or expanding. We have a unique issue at Shea because we don't have a lot on the grounds. So I know I heard something about trailers at one point, but I don't know where we'd even put them. I think another alternate facility for us to be housed in might be a good idea to look at least part of the students so we can have more space. And maybe deal with the potential COVID concerns as well if we have restrictions next year. That's really all I needed to say. Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Poria. Ms. List, anyone else?
Ms. Sherry Lynn Belanger?
Ms. Belanger, if you could go ahead and raise your hand, then Mr. Christina will let you in.
Hello, good evening, Chair, Deputy Chair, Superintendent, committee members, and Assistant Superintendents. I've been a math teacher and a computer science teacher at Shea for 18 years now, 19 years teaching in Pawtucket, and I've got some major concerns about us being in the building while construction's happening. My father did work in heating and air conditioning units, so I know the potentials of all the issues that can happen from that perspective as well. My first concern is mostly with the fact that we're going to have people on the grounds that have not had background checks, who we don't know from Adam, that are going to be on our property with our students. And these people will be coming in and out of the building. So now we have people who are not background checked, and we have people that will be leaving doors open while our students are in the building, and anyone can come in. My second concern is about the health of not just the students, but the staff as well. There are students that have asthma on the property. There are teachers who have asthma on the property. Many of us, our respiratory issues have started being when we were in that building. I have recently, within the last 3 years, been diagnosed with asthma. I never had it until I started really working at Shea. In the room that I'm in, it had several holes in the walls, and we had horsehair plaster coming out of the holes in the walls. Those have since been fixed, but that doesn't change the fact that the walls are made of horsehair plaster. There may be mold in the walls. There's definitely asbestos in the building. So those are some of my health concerns, but also the noise and the hearing of our students. I've been around construction, working, like I said, I've got a father who works in heating, and he has to wear protective ear gear just when he's working. So I can only imagine the noise that would be there for our students. And including the noise is also, it's an academic concern as well, because we have students who already have ADD and ADHD who have trouble focusing. And the fact that we are going to add noise to that is another big concern of mine. I work with special ed in my Algebra 2 classes, and they already have a lot of trouble focusing when they're in a classroom and it's, 90 degrees in the school, or it's freezing in the classroom because the heat's slow coming up in the morning. Just adding that extra concern of noise distracting them bothers me as well. I'd like to say thank you for letting me speak on this, and have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Belanger. Ms. List, next.
Ms. Jennifer McCarthy?
Ms. McCahey, if you're, there you are.
Hi,
Hi, good evening.
how are you? I appreciate this opportunity to address you today in regards to the occupied renovation at Shea High School. After months of packing and purging supplies and educational materials, I can't express how much of a demoralizing blow the news was less than 24 hours before the last day of school, to hear that all of the hard work that teachers, staff, faculty, administration, our janitorial staff had been doing for the past months of the school year now seemingly have to have been done for naught. Tens of thousands of dollars in supplies, books, materials had already been given away or thrown away. The course offerings for students had already been developed and was based on what we anticipated our new environment would be. Courses that are generally popularly requested by students were eliminated from our scheduling because the environment that we were moving to just wasn't conducive to offer them. Courses like cooking class, piano class, music production. We don't have a sound studio at home, and ceramics class, just to name a few of them. They're all popular with our students. They were removed from our course offering list. All of our cooking supplies and ingredients have been given away. And so now, staying in our building as it is with a workable kitchen, there isn't any allocation in our budget to recoup the supplies that are needed to offer these classes for the materials that are given away or thrown away. I'm sorry. The money that's already been spent on supplies expenses has become sure, and much of the money budget for this expense has already been spent. An occupied renovation will most definitely extend the time of this project, adding yet an additional cost. All of these expenses will, I'm guessing, will come off of the renovation budget. So if we need to develop new plans because the plans we already have developed are unable to be met because of the drop in the available funding, those plans are going to cost money as well. In addition to just the cost, the disruption to teaching and learning is going to be quite significant. There'll be quite a bit of noise, as others have mentioned. There's going to be activity in and around the building, conversations between workers, construction workers. They're going to be able to be heard by our students. I don't know how appropriate those conversations are going to be for students to hear. Phase changes in transitioning to different parts of the building during the year. Once we close off one section, we reopen another. Rooms are going to have to be changed. Supplies are going to have to be moved. Student schedules, their rooms are going to be different. We did hear that there were other occupied renovations happening across the state, and I urge you to find out more information about these. One of our faculty has spoken to Lincoln parents who either have or are going through an occupied renovation. They reported that it was difficult and quite disruptive. And they have a sprawling campus. We're on a postage stamp in Pawtucket to get those machines and equipment in and out, dumpsters that we're going to need. You heard about the health, wellness, and safety concerns. I know that about 15 or 20 years ago, Shea High School had the exterior of the building sandblasted. And the teachers that were there then do remember the lung infections, the difficulty with the students, the toxins in the air. All of those are going to be magnified with a renovation, especially when we are replacing plumbing, electrical, central air and heating system. We don't know how that's going to pan out. I'm hoping that, I think it would just be safer to do it somewhere else, but I would urge you to look into those areas too. But the toxins that are in the air for the respiratory system, your eyes, your integumentary system and your skin, they could be significant. And so we don't know what's going to be underneath those walls when we open them up. Everybody has seen those episodes of those, let's tear down the walls on those building shows. And when they get in there, they have no idea what they find. I think it's going to be quite a surprise when we get inside those walls. I just have so many thoughts. I'm sorry. I originally stated that the morale of our faculty had been affected by this announcement. And I do want to let you know that It did not take very long. Immediately after that initial knee-jerk reaction, our teachers and staff at Shea do what the Shea community does best. We band together, we unite, we move forward, we work the problem, and we find ways to get through it. I do want to let you know that the teachers that I have spoken to at Shea, we support a renovation. It is needed. Our students, our community, they deserve a state-of-the-art 21st century teaching and learning facility where they can flourish and have their needs met. But I just don't feel that an occupied renovation is in the best interest of our teachers, our staff, and our students. Thank you for your time and your listening ear. I appreciate your consideration into all of the issues that I know are probably going to come to the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCaughey. Ms. List, has anyone else signed up?
No, that's it.
Okay, we'll move to approval of previous meeting minutes from 6/15/21.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve the previous meeting minutes of 6/15/21 by Ms. Grant, seconded by Mr. Marino. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. At this point, I would entertain a motion to take new business as the next agenda item.
So moved.
Second.
We will move the new business items next on the agenda with a motion from Mr. Marino, seconded by Mr. Labby. Any discussion on moving the new business items forward? Roll call on the motion, please.
Ms. Bonolo,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes. At this time, Ms. List, I will turn the meeting over to you.
At this time, I will entertain a motion for the consideration of nominations for chairman.
I'd like to make motion. Ms. Liz?
Yes.
Okay. Several years ago, I met a woman who was elected to the school committee. Wait a minute, I can't see my screen. Since that time, she has maintained a quiet reserve and professionalism and slowly revealed the strength underneath that reserve. Erin Doobie did not wait for opportunities to present themselves. She attended PTO meetings at all schools and worked to establish communications among the parents. She has attended and assisted at open houses, making her familiar with students, families, and staff. She has also walked the corridors of all our schools to observe firsthand the condition and find new ways to offer assistance to our school communities. Erin joined the policy committee and has led the way, revamping, rewriting, and streamlining the school committee policy. She continuously researches for new ways to enhance our policies and watches for Rhode Island state regulation changes and brings updates when available. Erin also became chair of the Wellness Committee. In that position, she led the way to a reduction in sugary drinks provided by our food service management company, worked with our maintenance team and administration to bring filtered water systems into our schools for students and staff, as well as working now on the possibility of providing menstrual products in all our schools for students free of charge. In addition to being an active member of the Pawtucket School Committee, Erin is a member of Friends of the Pawtucket Library, co-chair of the Pawtucket's International Women's Day, a musician who actively plays with her family and friends, a mother of 2 daughters who likes to travel with her family, and an active member of Rhode Island Association of School Committees, currently holding the position of president-elect. Because of all these things and hundreds of things she has done that I haven't mentioned, I nominate Erin Doobie to the position of chairperson, Pawtucket School Committee. And if I am correct, and depending on your vote, Erin Doobie would be the first woman to chair this committee.
Second.
There's been a motion and it's been seconded. Is there a motion to close the nominations for chairman?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I'll be taking a roll call to close the nominations. Ms. Bonolo,
Yes?
Doobie,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
I'll now be taking a roll call for the election of Ms. Erin Doobie as chairman, and please state the name when I call your name. Ms. Bonolo,
Erin Doobie?
Ms. Doobie,
Erin Doobie.
Ms. Grant,
Erin Doobie?
Mr. Larby,
Erin Doobie.
Mr. Marino,
Erin Doobie.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Erin Doobie.
Congratulations, Mrs. Doobie.
Congratulations, Erin.
Congratulations.
So I'm now in charge of the rest. Is that how this works?
You are now in charge.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Liz. I do want to just start by thanking Ms. Bonolo for those very kind words, and clearly they show that, you know, as a committee, we support each other, and really it's humbling to hear those words, Ms. Bonolo. I also want to acknowledge our outgoing chairman, Jay Charbonneau. Serving on the committee under Jay, I had the ability to really see what real leadership is. And I want to thank him for his steady hand, his willingness to listen, his reflective nature through multiple construction projects, progress in our schools, and even a global pandemic. He has at all times acted in the best interests of our students. And I know that as he continues on as a member of this committee, he will continue to do that. I do truly believe, as I'm looking out at the faces, that we do have the strongest committee in this state. We have a diversity of voices and perspectives, and my role as chair needs to be to make sure that all of those voices are equally heard and valued as we move our district forward. My role is also to make sure that we maintain and strengthen our partnerships with our teachers, with our staff, with our city, with our businesses, with community organizations. It's through working as one and collaborating in good faith that we move our students forward most effectively. This is an exciting time for our district, as our agenda shows, but as we heard from public participation, it is also a challenging time for our district as we really undertake to deliver excellent education in 21st century school buildings. Finally, it is my role to ensure that the voices and needs of our students and families are centered in all of our discussions and decisions. I do not take on these roles lightly. I am honored and humbled that my fellow committee members are putting trust in me to carry them out. So for the next item on our agenda, election of deputy chairperson.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
I would like to nominate Roberto Moreno for Deputy Chair of the Pawtucket School Committee. Roberto is a true public servant. He has been steadfast in his commitment to serve the Pawtucket community with his work on the school committee and Pawtucket housing. During his time with the school committee, he has served on the policy subcommittee and he has chaired the facilities committee for the past year. Roberto is a great role model for our community as a man of color, first-generation student, and a champion for students with disabilities. It is with great honor that I nominate Roberto Moreno for Deputy Chair of the School Committee.
Second?
I would entertain a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion to close nominations by Ms. Manolo. It's been seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Is there any discussion? Ms. List, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Spinola,
Roberto Marino?
We're just voting to close nomination right now, Ms.
Oh.
Manolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. At this point, we have a nomination on the floor. As your name is called, can you please say the name of the person you would like to serve as deputy chair?
Ms. Spinola,
Roberto Marino?
Mr. Charbonneau,
Roberto Marino.
Ms. Grant,
Roberto Marino.
Mr. Larrabee,
Roberto Marino.
Marino,
Roberto Marino.
Ms. Doobie.
Roberto Moreno. Congratulations, Mr. Moreno.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Harvey, for those extremely kind words. It's an honor to serve with you all, and I might just want to say 5 years ago, when he was first elected the chair of this committee, wise and he said that this commitment it is bigger than one person, and while I hold these words true, I want to say a few words about him, and so so our city is better for the service of Jay Charbonneau, and in my time in a public service, I haven't come across a either a parent, a friend, and a mentor better than Jay. When I graduated from Tolman in 2012, from my to my time on the committee today, I have seen our schools at our worst and at our best, and I am extremely excited and enthusiastic to work closely with a chair Juby and all of you to improve our schools and our community at large for generations to comment to all of you, my colleagues on this committee. I just thank you for your belief in me and your even us as a body to serve our children, and it's an honor. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. So now we are on to approval of budget transfers to capital fund. Ms. Devine?
Good evening, everyone, and congratulations to the chair and co-chair, vice chair. Before you this evening, I have two budget transfers to transfer to the capital. However, I have to say on the first one, and I have to apologize, this has been a crazy year due to the pandemic with all of the delays in product and services. This first one, I'd still like to read through it, but it appears, and John can support me on this. I see he put his camera on. We actually have the work going on right now, and the company was able to get the pots. We had originally transferred this in March to the appropriate account codes, and then we found out that it was possible that it was not going to happen until after the first week of July, which is why this is on the agenda. But if they prove success, they were in our building all day today, ladders out and everything, and doing the repair work. It could be finished as soon as Monday, so that would be before the year end. But just in case, I'd like to bring it forward, just in case anything happens between now and then. We would like to move the 132 that was originally put into the electrical services to transfer out to capital, and this is for the controls in the admin building. The second one is the vehicles. This is for the IT transit van. That also was done earlier this year. This was done in February, and the typical lead time on a vehicle is usually about 12 weeks. And as we've all heard, there's been a shortage in new vehicles. And so we'd like to move this 41,100 out to the capital. We are expecting, we haven't heard from the vendor, but we're expecting that it's going to be beyond June 30th. So I request and like your approval to transfer these funds should we need to. Thank you.
Motion to approve the budget transfers is outlined by our CFO.
Second.
Been a motion to approve the budget transfers as outlined by Mr. Charbonneau. It's been seconded by Mr. Moreno. Discussion? Hearing none, Ms. List, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Bonello.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. Motion
you.
passes. Motion passes. The next item is a recommendation to award architectural design services for Elizabeth Baldwin Elementary School. Is our Colliers team coming in for this? Dr. McWilliams?
Colliers should be on the call.
Yes, I will let them in. I did receive a message today that they would be here, so let me bring them in right now.
Okay, thanks.
Gianna, and I'm just looking for Derek. There he is. They should all be in now.
Okay, thanks, Hirsch.
You're welcome.
Okay, good to see you all. So we have recommendation to award architectural design service for Elizabeth Baldwin Elementary School.
I believe Derek was going to take the lead on this one.
Great. Thank you so much. And great to be before you this evening. Yesterday at the facilities subcommittee meeting, interviews were conducted with the top 2 ranked architectural firms. I'm pleased to announce that they have forwarded a recommendation onto you this evening in favor of awarding to Louis Toronto Architects with John Levy Architects. And so what we'd be looking for this evening is your approval to enter into negotiations with Toronto Architects.
Motion to approve. Second.
There's been a motion to approve Louis Torado by Mr. Charbonneau. It's been seconded by Mr. Marino. Discussion. Ms. Grant.
Sorry about that. I just want to share in regards to the meeting last night. I have to say how disappointed I was in the way it was handled. I felt that all participants on the committee should have had a chance to be given the opportunity in private without the company in front of them to speak freely. Slam spoke, and then after Slam spoke, we asked questions, and then the Toronto agency came, and Mr. Charbonneau, Chairman Charbonneau at that time, made a motion without, even giving us an opportunity as a group to sit and discuss, and then be able to, without both of them, in front of us. So I just wanted to share, I did feel that it put us, it put us as members, myself, I can't speak for anyone else, but myself as a member, I felt that it put me in a very awkward position with Mr. Toronto and Mr. Levy still sitting there, for us to be able to speak freely if you were a member who opposed their company. I felt that we didn't have, we wouldn't have been able at that time, if we wanted Slam to be the company, to make that motion in front of Slam, because we needed to also listen to Toronto also. So I felt that we, as myself as a committee member, or us as committee members, should have been given the same respect in both situations. So I just wanted to share that. I know in the past I sat in on many interviews, and like I said, I've never been so disappointed in the way it was handled. I just, in the past, we've always sat, we've always discussed, and then, voted privately and shared those, comments, and not being placed in the position in front of the person to say anything negative, if we so chose to pick the other company. So I just wanted to share that with you all on my take of the, the facilities, and how, I looked at last night's meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Mr. Conley, can you just weigh in very quickly on with this being an open meeting or with facilities being an open meeting, can we remove, you know, companies or people who are watching? I know we're in Zoom world now. Are we able to, you know, kind of executive session the end of the meeting when we vote and ask them to leave, or?
So it was not, first of all, in the Open Meetings Act, it wasn't posted for a possible executive session in awarding the contract. So you could not have done that last night.
Thank you. Mr. Charbonneau?
Yeah, just a couple. I just want to respond to a couple of things Ms. Grant mentioned. You know, while it's true I was the chairman of the Pawtucket School Committee yesterday, it was a meeting of the Pawtucket Facilities Committee that I did not chair last night. Mr. Marino chaired it. So there was an opportunity that I remember after the Torado presentation to ask questions. In fact, I believe Ms. Bonolo asked some questions. I asked some questions. And then I believe it was no one else on the committee had any questions to ask of Mr. Torado or Mr. Levy. And so I'm not quite sure what Ms. Grant's getting at, but you know, the process followed its normal course the same way it did with SLAM. And then I made a motion based off the interviews that I saw to award to Torado. The motion was seconded and it was a roll call vote. I'm not sure where she was going with that. That's all.
Thank you. Ms.
Miss,
Grant?
yes, in regards to, you know, I was just referring to him as Chairman Charbonneau last night because he was the chairman last night. Today, he's Mr. Charbonneau. Last night, he was Chairman Charbonneau. That's the only place I was going there. It wasn't anything about who's in charge of the facilities committee. But typically in our meetings in the past, you know, they would have signed off and or not have been pictured or placed back into the waiting room. And I think at that time, it made it very difficult with the two of them and their team sitting there, or very awkward for you know, us to say anything if it wasn't something in favor. I also did ask a question last night, Mr. Charbonneau, and I do recall the other questions. And they were all focused towards them. So my comment, and I apologize if I wasn't clear on it, is that I felt that we were put in an awkward position with them sitting right there for it to be called out in front of them or to be able to discuss it with them. Of course, it was an open meeting and they could have, but I think, you know, maybe they could have been placed in a waiting room or something like that. But I just wanted to kind of explain or share how I was feeling, you know, on that situation. And, you know, hopefully, you know, going forward, you know, I don't think anyone would have, I know myself, wouldn't have been comfortable right there in front of Mr. Torado and Mr. Levy to make a motion in front of them for another company that wasn't actually right there face to face with us during the call. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Ms. Bonolo.
So pre-pandemic, when we were given information from potential architects, they would leave the room and it would be the facilities committee and members only of the facilities committee at that time, and whoever chose to stay in the audience, but we would have the discussion, and usually, you know, the architects left. So I understand Ms. Grant's point of view with that. And I'm just saying that maybe in the future, we look at that and possibly set an executive session, because we still have more buildings coming up, more decisions to be made. And when something like that happens, if we want to have a discussion, maybe we should stop putting in an executive session. Well, I don't know if we could even have an executive session on that. But bring it back to just the facilities committee on the screen that we're looking at. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finello. Is there any more discussion on awarding to Toronto for architectural design service for Elizabeth Baldwin? There's a motion. It's been seconded. Ms. Liss, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Finello,
Yes?
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
No.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie,
Yes. The next item is recommendation to approve additional civil design services for Charles E. Shea High School. Someone from the Colliers team taking this one as well?
Yep. Good evening, everyone, and congratulations to Chairwoman Doobie and to Chairperson Marino, or Deputy Chairperson Marino. So congratulations to you both. So we do have Pawtucket School Department is in receipt of a change order from Brewster Thornton Group Architects in the amount of $24,900. This is for our Charles E. Shea High School renovation project for additional design services. So as we know, Shea High School is a historic building. And as part of the Stage 3 design process, we had to collaborate and continue to collaborate with the Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission. And through our conversations with them, you know, we learned that they were not fully in agreement with the design as intended or proposed with the Stage 2. And this was really revolving around the new accessible ramp at the front of the building on the east side. So in conjunction with those conversations, as well as our programming conversations on the interior of the building, the idea came about, well, let's maybe shift from the front of the building and move the entrances to the back side or the west side. So as you know, we've shifted our design here, and we're looking to infill the two courtyards and put in two additions, which will now become our two new entrances. So these changes to the design has brought about some additional changes to our design services that weren't originally captured. So the first design service that we're looking to add is regarding geotechnical services. And this is just looking into the soil and exploring the land that's going to be where these new additions are going to be placed. So this service is $12,500. In addition to this, due to the size of these additions that we're building, we do have to go before the planning board committee. And with this, there's certain design services required for the submission. That is $4,900. We're also partnering with Attorney Conley on this, as they will be the legal representative for the Pawtucket School Department. So we are partnering together on that. And then lastly, we do have some site structural design services added to this. Since we're enlarging the footprint of the building, this is causing us to encroach into the hardscapes behind the building itself. So that's changing our parking lot design, as well as widening the drive lane for fire department traffic. And this ultimately results in the design of a new retaining wall. So with all of this said, it's the Collier's recommendation that the Pawtucket School Department look to approve the change order from Brewster Thornton Group Architects in the amount of $24,900.
Motion approved.
Second.
Been a motion to approve the change order by Mr. Marino. It's been seconded by Mr. Larrabee. Discussion, Ms. Bonolo.
Okay, I have a few questions.
Okay.
Are they going to provide us with a look at what the new design will be? With the entrance changes? That's question one.
Okay.
Question two is they are going to be digging. Are they going to have to do someone to test the soil because they're digging up the soil? So we have to look at that. We also have to look at, it's an old school. It's been there a long time. We're going to run into potentially the same problems that we ran into with Winters. I'm wondering how that's going to handle our budget. So there's a lot of things to look at. Are we putting the cart before the horse by voting on this? I'm not really sure. So your suggestions?
Sure. I definitely don't think we're putting the cart before the horse. And I do think that having the Winters project going on right now and having that be so close to all of our hearts right now, and what we've learned from that, we have, carried this over to Shea as well, and we will continue to carry that over to our Baldwin Elementary School. We have made sure that with the geotech services, that does account for additional borings and test pits to be done. So these will be done in the areas that we're impacting. So this will be in the courtyard area and testing down to where we will need to build new foundations. So we will be doing the due diligence, as well as what we've done for Winters, and then some for these two new additions. You had asked about the design. We will absolutely share the design. That's in process right now. We're in the design development drawings, 60%. So we should have 100% done the beginning of July so that you actually have our presentation to review at the July 24th committee meeting. So you'll absolutely have the time to ask some questions during that presentation.
Okay, and the new entrances, that'll all be ADA approved?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any further discussion? Sorry, Ms. Grant.
I have a question in regards to the designs. Megan, I'm sorry. Are you saying that that design has not been completed yet? The one for the entranceway in the back?
The designs are in process. Right now we're in the design development. So getting down to the nuts and bolts of the drawings right now are still in process, but they will be, fully complete once we get through the CD phase.
Okay, the only reason I ask is I know there were some drawings, I believe, because I had seen some on social media last evening at the Shea open house, that there were some drawings or some of what the, and I'm just wondering what those drawings were that were at the open house the other evening.
Sure. So those were the drawings that were included as part of the schematic phase drawings that you saw in the presentation. So the design hasn't really changed. So that was the same images were shown. We can forward them to you as well so you can see. But that'll also be relayed to everyone as part of the design drawing package that we present to you in July.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? So motion has been seconded. Ms. Liz, please take a roll call.
Ms. Bonolo,
Yes?
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes, yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie,
Yes. Motion carries. The next item is recommendation to award RTAs for Gilbane Winters Elementary School, RTA 038 Landscaping 32A.
Motion
Excuse me.
to approve.
Second.
Oh,
There's been a motion to approve by Ms. Manolo. It's been seconded by Mr. Marino. Mr. Jackson, are you going to explain?
Yes, sorry for jumping the gun there. I will be presenting RTA 38. It is the recommendation of Collier's project leaders to award the landscaping package to Central Nurseries of Johnston, Rhode Island, in the awarded amount of $883,855.
Okay. There has been a motion to approve. It's been seconded already. Is there any discussion? Mr. Charbonneau?
So, Jared, that's the entire site work?
Yes, so this includes all of the site work. It also includes things such as fences and playground equipment, the playground surfaces, everything landscaping wise. It'll include the flagpole out front.
And it comes
Yes, so
with-
there's a significant amount of landscaping around the, go on, sorry.
One of the things from some previous projects is there was like a 1 year or 2 year guarantee on some of the vegetation that was planted around. Does this include that as well?
Yes, so all of the plantings that we will install will come with a 1 year survival guarantee, I guess you could call it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Manolo, did you have a question as well?
my question was the one about the guarantee on the vegetation. So thank you.
Wonderful. And I do encourage, if you know, you haven't been by Potter Burns or Nat Green recently, it is wonderful to see, you know, how these projects, these landscaping like comes in over time and how it really just completes the school, you know, from the plants being small to all grown up. The landscaping really does make the outside wonderful for the students and faculty. There's been a motion. It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Liz, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Marino,
Yes.
Doobie.
Yes. Motion carries. The next item is school committee policies, first passage, EEA, student transportation. Mr. Larby?
Yes, so today I'm presenting an update to our student transportation policy. So this policy would allow for high school students who live 1.75 miles away from their designated school the opportunity to opt into bus services. Currently, right now, we do not provide busing for the majority of our high school students. And by having this radius metric of 1.75 miles from the school, we're able to open up busing opportunities for students in high school who choose to opt in. So this comes at no extra cost to our district. This is, first student was able to come up with a plan using the buses we already have. There are times where buses have a little bit of idle time in between stops, and they was able to figure out how to add additional routes that could accommodate this change for our high school students.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a motion to approve the amendment to student transportation by Mr. Charbonneau. It's been seconded by Mr. Marino. Discussion. Ms. Grant?
So I know in regards to, and we had discussed this when we spoke about renewing the contract, reusing the buses over, again, and things like that. In regards with using these buses, are we being reassured by them that this isn't going to delay pickups and drop-offs? So students are late, or students are going to be sitting at schools well after school is over.
Thank you. Ms. Rabbit, do you want to speak to, I know that you were, in the meetings with First Student and currently work with our transportation provider. Do you want to speak to kind of how this mapping works?
So the way that this mapping is going to work is that what we did is we took a look at our routes, and we knew, because we were no longer going to be transporting Davies, that we would have some space in those routes where we could transport the high school. And so the high school routes will not affect the students being on time for other routes. We looked for places where their bus was just sitting idle. We pay for the buses by the day. We don't pay by the runs. So it makes sense to us to use those spaces where the bus is idle to make runs for the high school. So this way we were able to allow the high school students to be bused, which I know has been a goal of this committee for some time, without impacting the other schools or adding to our buses.
And Ms. Rabbit, just to clarify, our new contract also has that new software, am I correct?
Correct.
Can you explain how that software will work for us knowing about on-time buses?
Correct. That will track our buses.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Charbonneau? You're on.
Sorry. I actually had a similar question to Ms. Grant. Do we know how many students are impacted that will be eligible at this distance?
Mr. Larby?
I actually don't have the numbers. We did discuss that, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. But from my memory, what I do recall is that the way it stands is we will have 5 additional runs, with 3 of those runs being designated to Tolman, because I believe they have more students who fit within that, outside of the 1.75 range, and then 2 of those runs being going over to SAY students who fit outside that range. And this is also done with the notion of that everybody who fits, who qualifies for this would not opt in, and trying to figure out, based on our percentages that we see in the middle school in terms of the amount of students who opt into our bus services. And we made an estimate, and we feel like with just these 5 additional runs, we should be able to accommodate all those who want to be bused.
Yes, so the numbers, Mr. Charbonneau, sorry, I did put Mr. Larby a little bit on the spot. I asked him to present this. The numbers for Shea are 174 students qualify. The numbers for Tolman are 258 students qualify. However, as Mr. Larby said, our middle school, when we first did this in middle school, it got off to a slow start because it was new. Parents already had other ways of getting their kids there. After we've had it in place now for approximately 5 years, Ms. Rabbit says that we have approximately 50% of the students who are eligible opting in. First Student said that that's pretty typical for an urban district. They expect us to have a similar enrollment. So that is why you see below on the policy that we want to, as much as possible, even though this isn't costing us to make these runs, as much as possible, make this available to more students. First Student was really pushing us to go to 1.5. They thought we had the capacity. We said we would go with 1.75 and then have an item in the policy that says that if we have available slots after the opt-in, we will then look at offering to more students using the same depot stops. So they don't have to reroute. They would essentially all go to Daggett and Central or whatever it is, but we would just say to another parent a little bit closer, if you'd like to, there's a bus stop here you can use. And in that way, we could hopefully get as many students on the bus, maybe down to 1.5, maybe down to 1, depending on what our opt-in looks like. And it would change year to year.
Perfect, thank you.
Ms. Grant?
Are we not offering this to our JMW high school students?
So JMW, because it is a choice school, and because they come from all different parts of the city, this wasn't something that we were looking to add, only because, like I said, they don't come from traditional distances to that school.
Okay, so the answer is we're not going to be offering it to them, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Bonillo?
Isn't, just to clarify on JMW, don't they know at the time of acceptance that they are responsible for transportation? Can you clarify that, somebody?
Dr. McWilliams?
Yes, so part of that process of the application process for JMW is that they would transport the students.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the amendment to EEA and extend our busing to our secondary students at Shea and Tolman. It has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Liz, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Bonillo. Ms. Bonillo.
Yes?
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. And I did just want to clarify, because I don't think I said this is first passage we are doing. So this will be on our agenda again to officially pass it. Okay, so we are now moving to old business discussion action items, Shea renovation, temporary school housing. Dr. McWilliams?
Yes, good evening. And first of all, I would also like to congratulate Chair Doobie and Deputy Chair Moreno. And I would also like to say to the outgoing chair, what a pleasure it has been to work with you over the past year and a half. And you know, just outstanding commitment to the students and to the families of Pawtucket. So thank you. And I, of course, congratulate our new ones on board and appreciate working with you going forward. So we are here to discuss the old business of Shea renovation, temporary school housing. As you know, as we've moved forward with our construction, thanks to this committee and our city committed to renovate our buildings. I know it's been stated many times before, an example that Pawtucket is to the state. And so with that being said, Shea now on deck as we started that process moving forward. And we knew beginning in this school year, right before the holidays, and then going into the winter months, that we needed to really nail down what we were going to do with those Shea students and how we were going to move forward. When the plan was submitted back years ago, when the 5-year plan was submitted, it was submitted with many different options. And so that, you know, had already gone before RIDE. As we moved into the winter months and looking at the various options, I came before the committee various times with options of what could be possible as far as housing the students. And as stated back in that May meeting, there weren't really very good optimal options for housing that number of students. And so the option of an A-B schedule was presented, which I believe aligned with law, because Title 16-2-2 does indicate that students need to be in school for 180 days. And that is what I presented as an option and what the committee voted on. And moving forward, wasn't aware of any issue until I received communication very recently from RIDE indicating that the 180-day, the intent of that law is that it's in person. And so the B's part of the schedule for any given school would not qualify under the law according to RIDE. And so therefore, I quickly turned to our OPM. I know he's on this call. I will ask him to speak in a few minutes. Well, what are our options? Because I know that this committee is committed to not pausing the momentum and not moving forward to make sure that we ensure our Shea families, our students, that they have a top quality 21st century renovated school, just like the Potter Burns. And I knew that that has been the commitment of this committee going forward. So I immediately pivoted in my mind, thinking, what can we do? Reaching out, of course, to our then chair in our OPM within a matter of 24 hours. And the option of what would be called a phased construction of renovation. And I know that we heard tonight on public participation from some of our Shea family. I have to say, Shea, it was stated that they just make it happen. And I have seen that with that faculty and the administration. They are outstanding. They really are troopers. They went through that school and they cleaned up the school. They did go through all their items and getting ready for this move. Outstanding job. And what I can say to them is, you know, I'm sorry that we weren't able to do that AB schedule. It came upon me very quickly in understanding that, and the pivot has happened very quickly. And I do understand their concern, and I do sympathize with them. However, I also know that we owe it to our Shea families and our Shea students to move forward with a renovation for that building, no matter what it takes. That would be my recommendation. I come before the committee asking you, after you hear from Mr. Osterman, of what a phased construction renovation looks like. I don't, you know, I know we heard from people wondering what it would mean being in the building, and I know we have to work out a lot of those details. So perhaps Mr. Osterman could explain to us what that would mean, because I would hate to see Shea not get renovated.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Dr. McWilliams. And let me first start, begin this portion by saying, what an honor it's been to work with Pawtucket over these many years. We've seen you do great things really across the district. And I know the students and faculty that have seen major renovations take place in schools such as Potter Burns and Green have been so excited. Obviously, we're working on winters now, and Baldwin is just around the corner. As we pivot to this most important work in addressing your high schools, Collier's very quickly responded to the superintendent's call. We are committed to making sure that we are able to carry your vision over and realize 21st century teaching and learning spaces for your high school students. With that in mind, we are very fortunate in that this project is being delivered with a construction manager. Not very long ago, Demio Construction was selected. And as the expert builder on the project, while we are still in the design phase, they've come to the table with us to really start to think about what may be possible, how we make sure that school remains a safe and fully operational school, while we look at a possible phased construction, where construction may take place in one vertical section of the school, while students are learning in other sections completely cordoned off and in separate areas from any of the working crew. And so we are fully invested in that study, and look forward to having the opportunity to continue to talk to it as we uncover what may be possible and what the best solution is for both the faculty and the students, as well as the residents in general throughout the city of Pawtucket. So it's our pleasure to continue to carry the torch and make sure that we make as much impact to the lives of as many students as possible.
Is there a motion on the floor?
So I guess the motion would be that we pivot here and we change from an A-B schedule to an occupied renovation. Is that in fact what we're looking to accomplish with this item?
I think we could make a motion of that, or that we explore an occupied renovation based on what Dr. McWilliams said at the beginning, that we begin exploring, or that we, something to that effect, yes.
Oh, then that's my motion, that we switch gears to an occupied renovation of Shea and we explore that opportunity. I believe we've had a portion of that presented to us already from Dimeo during their overall presentation, if memory serves me correct. But my motion is that we proceed with studying the occupied renovation of Shea, taking into account the safety measures and concerns brought up this evening from some of the Shea faculty.
Second.
There's a motion, and I'm going to make sure I get this right, to study an occupied renovation, taking into consideration as we study the safety and environment concerns. Am I correct, Mr. Charbonneau?
You are correct, Ms. Doobie.
It's been seconded by Mr. Moreno. Discussion. Ms. Bonolo.
So I know we received the letter from the mayor supporting whatever we do, and the information from Dr. McWilliams. As of tonight, when we started this meeting, because I did not go to the Shea, last night and hear people talking about the phased-in construction, I knew nothing about it. When I asked you, Dr. McWilliams, about what options we were looking at, I was told that we would talk about it tonight at the meeting. But you've already sent a letter out to the parents that we will be having a phased-in operation. So I'm not sure why we're last to know, and why this is presented as a done deal, because it hasn't been examined. I'm all for examining it, but there are also other options that we can look into. One I did, I mean, even if we have to move our children around so it's safe, and, you know, we have to do that. The safety of our staff and our students. I know, I'm not sure what's in Shea, but I know with Green, we had asbestos removal. We had it over at Potter Burns. There's a lot of things that are going on before we can make that decision. So I don't think we should just look at one option. I think we need to go back to the table and look at some of the other options available. And I think that they should be presented to the committee before they're given to everybody else. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bonolo. Mr. Moreno?
So I just want to I think that the motion on the floor was to explore the option, and I share the concerns of everyone who has a spoken here today I have a full faith in our central office and in Collier's to explore the option and present us with the safest way possible. So I just wanted to clarify that the motion on the floor is in its exploration phase.
Thank you. Ms. Grant?
I have a few things to ask about. Being the only member of the school committee who did not approve the AB schedule, you know, it disappoints me to see that the position that we are in at this time. When we voted to close Shea, I specifically asked the superintendent, you know, to explore all options. Again, what was presented to us was the AB schedule, and unfortunately, here we are. We did receive the letter. I remember waking up on Saturday morning to a email from the mayor stating that if we needed any help in regards to this. Like Ms. Bonolo, I am wondering, I know we received a list of some schools outside of the city that were looked into, a couple smaller Catholic schools that are no longer within the city, but has anyone reached out to the mayor to see if there's anything that the mayor's office and the city council can do to support us? And the other thing I want to say is I do kind of want to piggyback Joanne Bonolo. I am also very caught off guard. I'm not even sure where this came from. I didn't even know there was an email that went out until I heard this evening. And I'm so very intrigued to find out why all the staff and parents are under the impression that we're going to be having a in-school construction. I myself, it was never mentioned to me. So like I said, I'm a little caught off guard with that. So I would like to know kind of how that came about, and, you know, I don't know why we weren't maybe, hey, it's an FYI or something. But again, I think I will not vote for, just so you know, for in school construction. And the reason for that is myself, I have personally a medically fragile child, and I know that there are a lot of things during construction in older places, older homes, that really do affect people. And, you know, a lot of distractions will not be good for our students. And I feel that it would be just as bad as doing the AB schedule. We need to make sure that our students are safe, and that our staff is safe, and that our students are educated properly. We just, I think going forward, we just really need to handle these things a little bit better. You know, I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think when these plans were presented to us originally, after a pandemic, 1.5 years, I just think the whole situation was not handled very well. And again, I'm very disappointed that we're at this position. But I would like to know why or where this, I don't even know what this email says. So if someone could clarify why the staff or the parents think this is going to be taking place at Shea, if someone could explain that or provide me with a copy of it, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, Chair, can I speak to that? Mrs. Grant, thank you. And I will say just a few comments. Back in May, and actually I believe in February as well, I did come to the committee a few different times with various options of buildings around the city and even outside the city. Both myself and Collier's team, Holly, were investigating various options. So we did have, those options presented. And at the May 11th meeting, I believe it was, is when the committee voted to go with the AB schedule. So those options were presented. I did recommend that because when you looked at the other options, you wouldn't be able to house, the number of students, and those options would have required bringing those schools up to code. So that was my recommendation, but it was voted on by the committee on May 11th. As far as the communication, I'll be certain, and I will state right here, my apologies for not including, I thought when I sent that email that I also included the school committee, but I will certainly get that email and forward it to you. The quick pivot, as you said, getting the letter that you received on Saturday morning was a very quick time of turnaround of trying to figure out what we need to do, because we knew the last day of school was yesterday. These teachers, as it has already been stated, have been working diligently to get that building ready. And I knew that I wanted to make sure that I gave them some communication. And I did reach out to the chair and to Mr. Osterman about options. And so maybe I was incorrect in assuming that the school committee would want to move forward with Shea renovation. So I can certainly state that I did move and give the indication that we would be continuing with the renovation of Shea High School, and the other option on the table, or what we would call a Plan B, was to look at a phased construction under a renovation. And if that's not the direction of the committee, then I will certainly rectify that. I believe exploring that is wise, and that's what I have to say.
Dr. McWilliams, like I said, I don't know. I've never received a copy, so I don't know what it says. Does it state that that's the direction we're going in, or does it state that this is something that you're bringing to us? And I also just want to correct you. The committee did not, the full committee did not approve the AB schedule. It was a 6-1 vote.
Yes, correct.
So I do just, and
Yes.
I would appreciate going forward if you do state that correctly.
Yes, my apologies.
Okay, thank you. And if I could get a copy of that letter sent
Absolutely.
over to me as soon as possible, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
I just want to clarify, because as a parent, I did receive the email, and it does say that we will be discussing and voting tonight at the meeting as to how we would move forward with construction of an occupied school, and then it includes an invitation to this meeting.
Okay,
So I did
thank
want to
you.
clarify. It does not say
yeah.
this is what we are definitely doing, but I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Unfortunately, my child does not go. My child is part of the district, but does not go to school in the district. So unfortunately, I don't receive the correspondence. But I am a member of the school committee, so I should be aware of what is going on. I should not find out on the evening of a meeting.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Grant.
you.
Mr. Larby?
Yeah, just a quick question. So I know by law it's 180 days that students are supposed to be in person. And I was wondering if there has been situations in which districts have received special permission to do things to change, particularly for special cases like school renovations. And then in addition, if there is any flexibility on the exact number of 180, that could potentially allow for parts of the projects that may be more hazardous than other parts. Maybe closing the school down for a week and just doing virtual classes if we know that there's something going on within the school building during that construction phase that is not safe to have my students and faculty in the building. I just wanted to throw that out there as we continue to explore these different options.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Spinello?
I would like to amend the motion that Mr. Charbonneau made to include that all other options will be reviewed prior to a decision as to the housing of Shea students. Any second?
Second.
Ms. Benolo's made a motion to amend the motion. Is this correct for Mr. Conley for how we're doing this?
Yes, it is, but you'll need to take a vote on the amendment before
Okay.
you vote on the motion.
Ms. Benolo has made a motion to amend that we add that we will also explore other options. Ms. Grant has seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Mr. Charbonneau. You're on mute.
I would have a hard time supporting an amendment that says we should explore all other options. I think we need to be specific as to what those options are, so we don't end up back having this same conversation with somebody saying, well, you didn't think of this or that, or and we told you to explore all options. So I support Ms. Bonolo's motion, but I would ask that she clarify exactly what all options are.
We have a discussion on what all options are. There are other places that we have already looked at, and we have that information. At the corner of Newport Avenue, there is a lot for lease that could house a number of our students with trailers. I'm just looking for options where you said that I think Tolman could hold the freshman class, 900, Tolman could add to Tolman, you could add 900 students.
No, not 900. The freshman Shea students would be about 240. No,
Okay,
Tolman
so
themselves has 1,016.
Ms. Benolo, so are you clarifying, as I'm hearing you speak, that you're saying all other options for alternate housing of our students during construction?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Mr. Charbonneau, does that clarify for you?
I'm good with that, Ms. Bonolo, if that's the amendment.
okay, that's the amendment. Thank you for your assistance.
There's been a motion to amend that we also include continuing to look for all other alternate housing of our students. It's been seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Liss, is any further discussion on this? Ms. Liss, will you please take a roll call on the amendment now? Ms. Liss?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Ms. Bonolo,
Yes,
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Ms. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. The motion on the amendment carries. So as this motion now stands, it is that that we would explore, we would study what an occupied renovation would look like, and we would look at alternate housing options for our Shea students. Yes?
Yes.
And Mr. Osterman, can you please clarify for us? There's no construction that would be starting in September. Am I correct?
That is correct. So in order to properly study this, we will need to take some additional time with the construction manager to come back to you with potential options. And so the drawings are still being developed anyhow, so we don't need to begin construction in September. And so we'll be looking out in the calendar to determine a start date once this committee agrees to an approach in terms of moving forward.
And I did want to say that we will be looking at our subcommittees at our next meeting and making sure that we have our Shea Facilities Subcommittee in place. I know we already have members of the, but one of the items that I will be looking to do is make sure we have a Claire Baldwin Facilities Subcommittee, a Claire Winters Facilities Subcommittee, and a Claire Shea Facilities Subcommittee. And I would ask that any decision and any studies be brought to that subcommittee with teachers and the administrator from Shea to bring it here. And also that subcommittee will not have all 7 school committee members on it any longer, which I think will give more voice to those teachers and other members of our community. So is that good, Mr. Osterman, to bring it to that facility subcommittee before it comes here?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that makes great sense.
Thank you. So for those participants and for those who spoke, I would strongly encourage them to look for the posting of that meeting so that they can go to those meetings and speak in public participation there as well, so that those decisions can be thought through. Okay, there has been a motion. It's been seconded. It's been amended. And I did want to just say that I heard the participants, and I feel for those educators having that shift. And all I can say is Friday evening, and as Ms. Grant said, waking up on Saturday morning to find out that it had been rejected was really hard for me as well, because I knew how much time had already been put into this. And I really don't know why it had to wait that long for RIDE to let us know, because they knew we were doing this. But I appreciate the resilience of the teachers who spoke and still expressed their excitement about a renovation, and I also heard their concerns. There's been a motion. It's been seconded. Ms. List, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Finello,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Marina,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes. The motion carries. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Mr. Larby, seconded by Mr. Moreno and Ms. Grant. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everyone.
Night.